Hello. Thanks you for coming. My name is Mert, and today we're going to talk about something that I never talk about, which is Solana. And to do that with me, we have Dan here, the Executive Director of Solana Foundation. Dan, do you want to give a quick intro?
Sure. Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming. My name is Dan Albert. I serve as Exec Director for Solana Foundation. I've been working on Solana for over 5 years, really since the very beginning of the project. I originally joined the engineering team at Solana Labs about a year before Solana mainnet was launched. At the time, the whole world of Solana and builders was about 15 people. And most of us fit into a single office and spent that first summer of 2019 building by hand some of the first validators for Solana, doing some of the initial performance benchmarks, figure out how fast can this crazy idea from Anatoly actually run at the time. We launched mainnet in early 2020, and in middle of 21, I transitioned out of Solana Labs and stepped into my role heading up the Solana Foundation.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, Anatoly is pretty crazy. So one thing that I want to start with, historically, Solana has been very US-centric in terms of ecosystem teams, integrations, maybe even VCs. And now we're in Korea Blockchain Week, but Breakpoint this year is also in Singapore, and so we're seeing kind of a new Asia expansion. Can you talk a bit more about the thought process there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very clear that the future of crypto is completely global, and I think is going to be centered around the Asia-Pacific region. Of course, many other important developments in countries all over the world. But as we look at where the growth of users and developers, open-minded and progressive legal structures and regulatory regimes, it's really kind of inspiring to see so much of that happening in a lot of countries in Asia, as well as in other places around the world, including in the UAE and others. The early engineers, or most of the earliest engineers on Solana, we were from the US, right? I still live in the US. And because that's where the founders live, Raj and Anatoly live in the US, I think it was sort of natural that we got a lot of that kind of early attention. And just given how quickly Solana has grown, how quickly the global community has blown up, it's really important to us, I think, in the community more broadly, and particularly within Solana Foundation, to make sure that all of the Solana communities are really understanding what's going on and know how to build on Solana, how to get connected. So to that aim, we have launched this program called Super Team, which is a community and developer growth and coordination engine in local countries all over the world. Currently, we have, I think, 15 super teams, several in Europe, but we have a super team Japan recently launched. We've got super team Malaysia, looking to get super team going in Singapore, and most importantly, we are actively in the process of spinning up a super team right here in South Korea. For anybody that's interested in the Solana community, learning how to build projects, staying up to date, that is definitely like the right approach.
Yes, Super Team is awesome. When Super Team Korea?
ASAP. We're actively hiring for or looking rather. These are external grantees, not foundation employees. We're actively looking for someone to start up and lead Super Team Korea right now.
All right, cool. Well, let's maybe shift it a bit more to the tech side. Or actually, before the tech side, one thing that I've noticed is a lot of people recently have been using Solana for a very specific purpose, which has been aping meme coins or celebrity coins, or whatever you would call them. And there's a lot of kind of debate on both sides, like, are these good, are these bad, extractive, and the answer usually depends on who's answering, obviously. What do you think about them?
So I think as a whole, I think meme coins and celeb coins are really, really interesting. I think overall, I think they're great. Does that mean I think, okay, this one token is great and this other one is horrible or whatever? No. But what they do represent is sort of the next level of kind of pushing the boundary of experimenting with what we can do with a platform where you can, create tokens, transfer them, assign some ultimately arbitrary value to them, and enable people to hopefully just have fun, right? I mean, it's the same reason, like, why do you do stuff on the internet? Why do we watch streams on Twitch? Because it's fun. People, meme coins are fun. Celeb coins are fun. Now, I see that as like sort of a cyclical evolution, right? What we had a couple years ago was like the NFT boom, right? Everybody was minting, 10K NFT collections for your profile pictures. They were a lot of fun. There were all sorts of new NFT minting platforms. Prices were wildly volatile, just like they are with meme coins. But first and foremost, it was fun, and that was like the kind of the cutting edge tech at the time. What can we do with this new type of token? And now, similarly on Solana, the network has matured, it's faster, it's more stable and robust than it ever has been, although I know you have many critiques about that. And you have this environment that's only possible on Solana where we can create, I think 20,000 new tokens were being minted a day kind of earlier this year, and distribute them to a zillion wallets super fast, super cheap, and see what comes out of it. Now, unfortunately, one of the things that has come out of it is that a lot of these tokens go to zero. Some of the platforms have been accused of being very extractive to the users, and so we've ended up in this sort of, I think, kind of pretty uncomfortable situation where I don't want to see anybody getting hurt or getting burned, regardless of what they're doing, and I don't think it's wrong for people to shy away from new explorations and experimentations with a network that performs the way Solana does.
Yeah, so I want to get to those critiques in a bit, but first, maybe let's just highlight some underexplored use cases other than meme coins, things like DePIN payments that come to top of mind when you think about Solana.
Absolutely. So DePIN is a great example of really a net new industry that could not exist without blockchains. And rather than seeing some application that is, okay, we could do this on AWS, but instead we threw it on a blockchain because we can slap a token on it. DePIN, decentralized physical infrastructure networks like Helium, HiveMapper, Teleport, that provide token incentives to both providers and consumers of physical services. So Helium is a decentralized 5G radio network. They provide low-cost 5G cellular access to customers in the US. And how can they compete on cost is that there is an incentive for hotspot providers to set up a node that serves radio service. And all of those incentives and the rewards for when people connect, these are all managed on the back end on the blockchain on Solana. So I think there's a ton of other interesting projects. I think there are currently 78, I believe was the number, 78 announced DePIN projects on Solana, which is more than any other blockchain ecosystem. And I think the interesting thing, you mentioned payments. I think payments is more than just a use case for blockchain. It is the use case for blockchain. Everything that is an incentive is some form of a payment, right? Whether I just send you an NFT or I send a token to people or I get an airdrop, all of these things are sending and receiving some form of payment. And now that we have the ability to settle transactions so easily and so cheaply on Solana, really looking forward to seeing sort of a DeFi-like proliferation of financial products that are based around payments, sending and receiving rather than just trading, settlement for the provision of actual useful services that people care about.
Well said. There's a lot of cool integrations with Visa, the recent PayPal one as well. But let's go back to the critiques. Let's keep it interesting. There is kind of this prevailing meme, let's say, about Solana and outages, even though the last one, it's been quite some time since the last one. And it seems to be the only chain that has that narrative, regardless of other chains actually having outages. What do you think is the cause of that? Or what do you think about it?
Look, outages suck for everybody. There's no way around that. It's absolutely the most important thing that we try should never happen on any chain, right? Particularly not on one with as much use as Solana. From a narrative standpoint, it's a little hard to say. I think Solana is, by a number of measures, on par with Ethereum in terms of adoption, traction. We've repeatedly seen, chain revenues, DEX volumes, a lot of different metrics, right? Where Solana is neck and neck with ETH in basically all but market cap, and I think provides the only credible alternative to being the #1 smart contract platform in the world, and that puts a number of people who have been around longer than Solana, I think, on edge. And, my hope is that we can all play positive-sum games, right? We're not just sort of, trying to fight over shares of a tiny pie, but make the pie bigger. It's true that other platforms we've seen have had outages or times of unavailability, just like Solana has. Where is the narrative asymmetry? I think Solana has the most users. And so when something breaks, you hear about it a lot more, and it gets out to everybody right away. And that absolutely shouldn't happen anymore, but I think is in part why we've seen some of that narrative asymmetry.
And one of the things that's being done to address the outages, or just, let's say, chain performance and the kind of next step, is probably the most exciting thing about Solana this year, which is the development of a new validator client called Firedancer, being developed by Jump Crypto. I know you're a big fan of Firedancer, so can you briefly explain, first of all, what it is and why you're excited about it, why it's important?
Yeah, so I think Firedancer is the single biggest development in the Solana ecosystem happening right now. And that's not to diminish everything that you and your team have done, or that a lot of people here who've worked on Solana have worked on. But so Firedancer is a new validator for Solana. All right, so the Solana mainnet network has today about 1,500 block-producing nodes, another 2,000 or 3,000 full nodes, RPC nodes, spread out over 400, 500 locations all around the world. And every one of those nodes runs basically the exact same software or a closely modified version of that software, either the original Solana validator or Jito, which is a closely related fork, shares about 99% of the same code. So if there is a bug or a critical vulnerability in that code base, that will affect the whole network. That affects the whole protocol. And so the Firedancer project is an initiative to rewrite the entire validator code base in extremely high performance, optimized code in C, as close to the hardware as physically possible without basically writing in assembly or machine code. And so there's a couple benefits here. The first one is, first and foremost, is safety. If there are multiple implementations of the validator code and half the network chooses to run the original validator and half the network chooses to run Firedancer, or even if it's 90%, 10%, you always have a backstop that if there's a bug in one, there's extremely unlikely to be a bug in the other client. And so you always have a more reliable, robust source of truth. Hopefully most professional validators, right, Helius included, I would hope, would actually run both validators in parallel. And that way you can immediately detect if there's a divergence between those two. So there's really beneficial improvements for the network's long-term safety. This would make Solana the only chain other than Bitcoin and Ethereum to actually have a completely separate second validator. And in fact, we have more than two. There's also a third project called SIG, which is being built by the Syndica team. They are building a third validator from scratch in in the Zig programming language. And so these are massive, massive engineering challenges. And the FireDancer team has the benefit of, they can look at the Solana network and all of the technical debt and all of the features that had to be built while the network was in production and all the bugs that were fixed and sort of, patch this or fix that over the years, and start from a clean slate and say, okay, if we were going to rebuild this thing from the ground up, how could we make it as absolutely efficient as possible, as performant as possible? And the result is basically a validator with performance up to 1 million TPS. And it's hard to understate what a Solana with 100 times the performance capacity as what we're operating at today can look like, bringing the chain, which is already the fastest chain, leaps and bounds ahead of a lot of our peers in the industry.
Okay, so basically the TLDR is much more secure, optimized from the ground up for performance, so it's going to be faster, more scalable. Yeah, the 1 million TPS number, that would be pretty insane for sure. What do you think the next, or I guess maybe this is going to piss off the FireDancer folks, but what do you think about timelines here in terms of development? Will we see anything at Breakpoint, New Year?
Yeah, so the first version of FireDancer, which is called Frankendancer, which is a partial rewrite of the validator. It uses partly FireDancer code and some parts using the pre-existing validator. This has been live on testnet. It was actually announced last year at Breakpoint that the first version of FireDancer has been on testnet. It's been in continual development. This early version of FireDancer, details TBD coming at Breakpoint for the official announcement, but that first version, Frankendancer, is live on mainnet today. The full version of FireDancer, which includes the complete rewrite, which is like the really holy grail, is just now hitting testnet. So hopefully we will see like the full shebang live on mainnet sometime in early 25. And that includes a completely rewritten Solana virtual machine, written in C, processing transactions, and getting the exact same results as the existing Solana validator. Something I believe you got into a pretty spicy debate about, if that was even possible the other day.
Yeah, that was a fun time on Twitter. Okay, so it seems we have 1.5 minutes left. So I think maybe a good closing point is, in the audience, assuming there's people who haven't really, done anything on Solana or, downloaded a wallet and they just they're maybe just interested, curious. How would you recommend they start on Solana? What should they do?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think if you're looking to get started on Solana as a user, I think there's a lot of great apps. I think Jupiter is probably the slickest DeFi app in the industry. Check it out. Download Backpack or Phantom or Soulflare are some of the top Solana wallets. They've got really great user experience. You can plug into a ton of things in the ecosystem. As a builder, if you're interested in contributing to Solana, we have a hackathon ongoing right now. It's called the Radar Hackathon, being run by the team at Coliseum. There's millions of dollars in prizes available. Some of the biggest and most impactful projects on Solana have come out of some of these hackathons. These are more than just coding competitions. They are the goal is really to stimulate the formation of new products, new projects, for people that might want to join or launch a business or some sort of service on Solana. We've got a great community. I think there's been thousands of registrants so far. So that's at solana.com/hackathon.
All right, cool. So basically you get a wallet, Phantom, Backpack, Soulflare, maybe even Coinbase. If you're a user and go on something like Jupiter, maybe Pump.fun if you don't value your mental health. You could go on Bet by Drift and do some prediction markets. And if you're a builder, there's a pretty solid hackathon going on right now. And you should also stake with Helius. All right, that is all we got. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you to our speakers for that engaging discussion.